My son was laughing at me. I could see it from across the courtroom, the way he leaned into his wife's ear, the smirk playing at the corner of his mouth, like I was some doddering old fool who'd gotten lost on the way to bingo. The drive here had taken 3 hours. 3 hours of my hands shaking so badly on the steering wheel that I'd had to pull over twice just to breathe. 3 hours of telling myself I was doing the right thing, even though every maternal instinct in my body was screaming at me to turn around, go home, pretend I'd never seen what I'd seen. But I kept driving. The courthouse was one of those old granite buildings that made you feel small just looking at it. I pushed through the heavy wooden doors, and the sound echoed through the marble hallway like a gunshot. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows behind me, and for a moment I felt like I was walking into a church instead of a courtroom. Maybe that's fitting. I was about to confess my sins, the sin of staying quiet for too long, the sin of loving my son more than I loved the truth. The courtroom smelled like old wood and anxiety. I spotted Michael immediately at the defendant's table, his wife Jessica beside him in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. They looked perfect together. Successful. The kind of couple you'd see in a furniture catalog, smiling over a dining room table they'd never actually eat at. Michael saw me and said something to Jessica. She turned, and I watched her face shift into this expression of what? Pity? Amusement? Jessica whispered back, and they both smiled. Not the kind of smile you give someone you're happy to see, the kind of smile that says, "Look what the cat dragged in." My heart cracked right down the middle. I'd given birth to that boy. I'd held him through fevers, taught him to ride a bike, sat in the front row at every baseball game even after his father died and money got tight. I'd loved him with every fiber of my being. And he was looking at me like I was a joke. I made myself keep walking. My purse felt heavy on my shoulder, not because of what was in it, but because of what it represented. Evidence. Proof. The end of everything. I slid into a seat on the left side of the courtroom, 3 rows back, the prosecutor's side. Michael and Jessica were still whispering, still smirking. They thought I was here to support them. To play the role of the loyal mother who'd sit behind her son and cry prettily for the jury. God, I wanted to be that mother. I wanted to be the kind of woman who could ignore what I knew, who could choose her child over the truth. But I'd never been that woman. My mama raised me to have a spine, even when it hurt. All rise, the bailiff called out. Everyone stood. The judge entered, an older man with steel-gray hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He settled into his chair with the kind of authority that comes from decades of hearing the worst of human nature and somehow not losing faith entirely. "Be seated," he said. The room rustled as we all sat down. My hands were folded in my lap, fingers twisted together so tightly my knuckles had gone white. The prosecutor stood, a woman in her 40s with dark hair, pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. She'd been kind to me during our meetings, patient when I'd cried, firm when I'd wanted to back out. "Your Honor," she said, "the prosecution calls its first witness." This was it. We call Eleanor Hartwell to the stand. For a second, the name didn't register. Then I realized that was me. I was Eleanor Hartwell. I was the witness. I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor was deafening in the sudden silence. I could feel every eye in that courtroom turned toward me, but the only ones I cared about were Michael's. I watched his face change. The smirk died first, sliding off his features like water. Then confusion flickered across his expression. Why was his mother standing up on that side of the room? Then understanding. Then fear. Jessica grabbed his arm. "What?" she started, but her voice cut off when she saw me walking toward the witness stand. Michael's face had gone absolutely white. All the blood drained right out of it, leaving him looking like a ghost of the little boy who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms. The bailiff met me at the gate. "Please raise your right hand." I did. My hand trembled in the air. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" I looked at Michael. His mouth was open slightly, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Jessica was whispering urgently at him, her polished composure finally cracking. "I do," I said. My voice sounded stronger than I felt. I sat down in the witness box. The wood was smooth and cool under my hands. "From here, I could see everything: the jury box to my left, the judge directly in front of me, and Michael and Jessica at the defendant's table to my right. Michael was staring at me like I'd risen from the dead. The judge looked at me over his glasses, and something soft flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or sympathy. He'd probably seen 1,000 family tragedies play out in this room. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said gently, "I understand this testimony will be difficult." Difficult! What a small word for what I was about to do. I nodded. My purse was sitting on the ledge in front of me, the same purse I'd carried to church every Sunday, to grocery stores, to doctor's appointments. The same purse I'd had the day my husband died, clutching it in the hospital waiting room like it could anchor me to the earth. I opened it, pulled out the folder I'd been carrying for 6 months. It was thick, stuffed with papers, bank statements, legal documents, photographs. 6 months of evidence that I'd collected in secret, crying myself to sleep every night because I knew what it meant. I placed it on the ledge in front of me. Michael was shaking his head slowly, like he could somehow make this not real. Jessica had her hand over her mouth. The prosecutor approached. "Mrs. Hartwell, can you tell us about the documents you've brought today?" I looked down at the folder. My life was in there. My husband's life. The 43 years we'd spent building something to leave behind. And I was about to use it to destroy our son. "These," I said, and my voice cracked on the word, "are the documents that prove my son and his wife have been stealing from me for the past 18 months. Someone in the jury box gasped. Michael stood up suddenly. "Mom, please." "Sit down, Mr. Hartwell," the judge said sharply. Michael Saturday. But his eyes never left my face, and I could see it there, the desperation, the fear, and underneath it all, the faint hope that I might still back down. That his mother might still choose him over the truth. I opened the folder. "It started," I said, 3 weeks after my husband's funeral. My husband died on a Tuesday. I said it matter-of-factly, but my voice still broke on the word died. Even after 2 years, it felt wrong saying it out loud. Like if I just stopped talking about it, Robert would walk through the door asking what was for dinner. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of the court reporter's fingers on her keyboard. Robert Hartwell, 40, 3 years of marriage. He was a veteran, served in Vietnam, came home with shrapnel in his leg and nightmares he never talked about. Worked as a mechanic for 37 years, saved every penny he could. I pulled out the first document from my folder, a bank statement from March 2023. When Robert passed, he left me our home paid off, no mortgage, his veterans benefits, and a savings account with $127,000 in it. I heard someone in the jury box whistle softly. It wasn't a fortune, but for people like us, people who'd clipped coupons and bought generic brands and fixed things instead of replacing them, it was everything. "That money was supposed to last me the rest of my life," I said. "Robert made me promise I'd use it to stay independent, to never be a burden on anyone." Michael was staring at the table now, refusing to look at me. 3 weeks after the funeral, Michael called. My throat tightened. He said he was worried about me, said I shouldn't be alone in that big house with all those memories. Said he and Jessica wanted to move in for a while, just until I got back on my feet. The prosecutor stepped closer. "How did you feel about that, Mrs. Hartwell?" "Grateful," I whispered. "God help me, I was grateful. I thought my son loved me. I thought he wanted to help." I could see it all again, playing in my mind like a movie I couldn't turn off. Michael showing up with suitcases, Jessica right behind him, with her bright smile and her expensive perfume. The way they'd hugged me, told me everything would be okay, that I didn't have to do this alone. I'd believed them. They moved into the guest room. I continued. Jessica started cooking dinner. Michael mowed the lawn. For about 2 months, it felt like I had my family back, like I wasn't completely alone anymore. I pulled out another document. My hands were shaking so badly the paper rattled. Then Michael said we should probably get my finances organized, said it would be easier if he could help me pay bills, manage things, since I was still so foggy from grief. I looked up at the jury. I was foggy. I was drowning in grief. Some days I forgot to eat. Some nights I'd wake up reaching for Robert, and the bed was empty, and I'd just break. A woman in the jury box was wiping her eyes. So when Michael brought me papers to sign, I signed them. He was my son. I trusted him. The prosecutor held up a photograph. Is this the kitchen table where you sign documents? I nodded. Every Sunday afternoon, Michael would make me tea chamomile with honey, the way I like it. I pulled out a stack of bank statements. The jury could see them. I watched their faces change as the prosecutor held them up one by one. March 2023, $127,443.18. April 2023, $119,022.54. May 2023, $98,337.29. June 2023, $1,205.16. I didn't notice at first, I said. I wasn't checking. Michael said he was handling everything, and I was so tired, so sad, I let him. July 2023, $63,891.47. August 2023, $42,556.83. September 2023, $18,229.52. By October? I said, and my voice was barely a whisper now. I had $37 in my account, 40 years of my husband's hard work, gone. Michael's lawyer jumped up. Objection, Your Honor. Mrs. Hartwell's son was authorized to— Overruled, the judge said coldly. Sit down. The prosecutor turned to me. Mrs. Hartwell, when did you realize something was wrong? I needed to go to the doctor. I called to make an appointment, and they told me my insurance had been canceled. I called the insurance company, and they said the payments had stopped coming from my account months ago. I pulled out another document. I went to the bank, asked for my balance. The teller looked at her screen and got this expression on her face like she was sorry for me. She printed this out. I held up the statement showing $37.16. I asked her where my money went. She showed me the withdrawals, thousands of dollars at a time, all authorized by Michael Hartwell, power of attorney. Did you give your son power of attorney? No. The word came out hard and sharp. I did not. The prosecutor handed me a document. Is this the power of attorney form filed with your bank? I looked at it. My signature was at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature. It was close, very close. But the loop on the E was wrong, and I always crossed my H with a little flourish. This one didn't have it. That's not my signature, I said. Are you certain? I've been signing my name for 72 years. I know what it looks like. Michael was shaking his head frantically, whispering to Jessica. She had her hand on his arm, squeezing hard. Mrs. Hartwell, the prosecutor said, how did you discover who forged your signature? This was the part I'd been dreading, the part that still made me physically ill to think about. I was looking for a pen, I said. In the kitchen drawer where we keep the junk rubber bands, old keys, take-out menus. I found a notepad shoved in the back. The prosecutor held up a spiral notebook. Is this the notepad? Yes. She opened it. The jury leaned forward. Page after page, lines and lines of my name, written over and over in handwriting that wasn't mine. Eleanor Hartwell, Eleanor Hartwell, Eleanor Hartwell. Practicing. Perfecting. That's Jessica's handwriting, I said. I recognized it from the grocery list she'd leave on the counter. The prosecutor flipped to a page where the signature had evolved. You could see at the early attempts that looked nothing like mine. Then slowly, gradually, getting closer and closer until the last few pages looked almost perfect. Almost. A woman in the jury box gasped. A man shook his head in disgust. Jessica was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who'd been caught. The prosecutor walked closer to me. Mrs. Hartwell, what did you do when you discovered the forgery? I looked directly at Michael. He finally met my eyes. I saw the boy I'd raised in there somewhere, buried under the man who'd stolen from his own mother. For a second, just a second, I wanted to take it all back. To say I'd made a mistake, that I'd misunderstood, that we could fix this as a family. Then I thought about Robert. About 40 years of grease under his fingernails and aching knees and coming home exhausted every single night because he wanted to give us a good life. I thought about the promise I'd made him in the hospital, holding his cold hand. I'll be okay. I'll be smart. I won't let anyone take advantage of me. Mrs. Hartwell? The prosecutor prompted gently. I straightened my spine. I hired a private investigator. Michael's face went gray. And what he found, I said, my voice steady now, strong, was so much worse than I ever imagined. The investigator's name was David Chen, and he looked nothing like what I expected. I'd called him from a payphone 2 blocks from my house that wasn't mine anymore because I was terrified Michael might be monitoring my cell phone. I'd seen enough crime shows to know that was possible, and by that point, I didn't know what my son was capable of. Mr. Chen found everything in 3 weeks, I told the courtroom. 3 weeks, and he had a paper trail that went back 18 months. The prosecutor nodded. Can you tell us what he discovered? I opened the folder wider. There were so many documents now, spread across the witness stand ledge, like evidence of my son's complete betrayal. Credit cards, I said. 7 of them, all opened in my name. The prosecutor held up the applications. I watched the jury lean forward, squinting to read them. Discover card, Chase Sapphire, American Express Gold. I rattled them off like a grocery list, but each word tasted like poison. Total credit limit of $98,000. All maxed out within 6 months. Did you apply for these cards, Mrs. Hartwell? No. I've had the same MasterCard since 1987. I don't even know how to apply for a credit card online. But Jessica did. Jessica, who worked in marketing and spent half her life on her laptop, who'd told me once that she'd opened a store card at Macy's just to get the 20% discount and paid it off the same day. Jessica knew exactly how to do it. Mr. Chen traced the purchases, I continued. Designer handbags, a trip to Cancun, a brand new Audi SUV silver with leather seats and a sunroof. I looked at Jessica. She was staring at her hands, that expensive manicure gleaming under the courtroom lights. I drive a 2009 Honda Civic, I said quietly. The air conditioning doesn't work, but I didn't need a new car because I had savings. Except I didn't have savings anymore because my son and his wife spent it on a car that cost more than Robert made in 2 years. Someone in the jury box muttered something. The judge shot them a look, but I could see the anger on his face too. There's more, the prosecutor said. God, there was so much more. I pulled out another document. This one made my hands shake so badly I almost dropped it. A reverse mortgage, I said. Contracts I drafted, and he signed without reading. Property analyses I wrote by hand at 2 a.m. while he slept. Client testimonials about Richard's brilliant strategies that were actually my work. I paused. She's very thorough. Gets it from her mother. I taught her well. Your lawyer is your daughter? Robert's voice cracked. My other daughter, the one who became an attorney instead of a bank teller. I glanced through the glass at Jessica. The one who still calls me every Sunday. David was staring at the business card, at the folder, at me. You planned this, he said slowly. For years. For decades. Why now? Because I'm 63 years old and my furnace is broken, and I asked my daughter for $200 and she laughed at me. My voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Tom found his voice. Mrs. Chen, even if everything you're saying is true, it is. The IRS will have questions. The estate has been settled for 5 years. Richard left everything to Jessica and David Jr. Everything he actually owned anyway. The house, his car, his precious reputation. I stood up. What he didn't own was my compensation. What he didn't know about, he couldn't leave to anyone. I picked up my purse. Now, I've been patient. I've answered your questions. I've shown you that I have legal counsel and documentation and every single thing you could possibly need to verify that this money is mine. I looked at each of them. So I'm going to ask one more time. May I please have my cashier's checks? Nobody moved. Then David Park did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Not mockingly, not nervously, with genuine admiration. Mrs. Chen, he said, standing up, straightening his navy tie, I've worked in banking for 15 years. I've seen fraud. I've seen schemes. I've seen every creative way people try to hide money or steal it or move it around. He extended his hand. I have never, in my entire career, seen anything like this. I didn't shake his hand. Not yet. Is that a compliment or an accusation? It's respect. He smiled. You didn't break a single law, did you? Not one. You were smarter than every single person who underestimated you, including my husband, especially your husband. He lowered his hand. What are you going to do with $3.8 million? Through the glass, Jessica was walking toward the conference room again. Her mascara had run, leaving dark tracks down her cheeks. She looked destroyed. She looked exactly how I'd felt for 40 years. First, I said, I'm going to fix my furnace. Tom made a sound like a laugh and a sob combined. Then, I continued, reaching for the door handle, I'm going to buy something Richard always said was his. What's that? Robert asked. I pulled the door open. Jessica was right there, 5 feet away, frozen in the middle of the bank lobby. My daughter's house. Jessica's face went from red to white in half a second. What? She whispered. I stepped out of the conference room. The entire bank was watching now. The other tellers, the customers, even the security guard by the door. The house you live in, Jessica, the one on Oakwood Drive with the bay windows and the finished basement and the backyard where Tommy plays soccer. I kept my voice calm. Conversational. Who do you think bought that in 1987? Dad left it to me in his will. I saw the papers. You saw papers that said Richard Chen owned it, but Richard didn't buy that house, sweetheart. I did. I opened my purse, pulled out another folder. This one was mine. Older. I bought it with my money, from my account, and I put it in a trust. Let your father think he owned it because it made him happy. But trusts have beneficiaries and conditions. I handed her a single piece of paper. Her hands shook as she read it. Her lips moved, silent, going over the words again and again. No, she breathed. Yes. You can't. I can. And I am. David Park had followed me out of the conference room. He was reading over Jessica's shoulder, his eyes widening. Mrs. Chen, he said quietly, this trust provision, if the primary beneficiary demonstrates financial irresponsibility or failure to honor familial obligations, you can revoke their interest? My lawyer is very creative with contract language. Jessica looked up at me. Tears were streaming down her face now. Real ones, the kind you can't fake. Mom, please, I have kids. Tommy and Sarah, they live there. Their school, their friends. You should have thought about that before you laughed at me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. You never wondered how your father built everything. You never questioned why I was just the secretary. You took and took and took and never once thought about where it all came from. My voice was rising now. I couldn't help it. $200, Jessica. That's all I needed. And you made me feel like trash in front of everyone. She was sobbing. Full, ugly sobs that made her whole body shake. The other customers were pretending not to stare. Tiffany had her hand over her mouth. Tom came out of the conference room. Mrs. Chen, please? Perhaps we could. My checks. He looked at David. David nodded slowly. Process the withdrawal, David said. Full amount. Cashier's checks. Jessica made a sound like something breaking. Tom disappeared behind the counter. I could hear him talking rapidly to someone, probably on the phone with corporate, probably getting authorization for the largest withdrawal First National had seen in a decade. I stood there in the middle of the lobby, waiting. Jessica collapsed into one of the chairs by the door. Her coworkers didn't go to her. They just watched. 10 minutes later, Tom came back. He was carrying an envelope, thick, security sealed. 5 cashier's checks, he said quietly, as requested. I took the envelope, felt the weight of it. 40 years of work. 40 years of being invisible. In my hands. Thank you, I said. Then I walked toward the door. Mom, Jessica's voice cracked. Where are you going? I stopped, turned, looked at my daughter, beautiful, polished Jessica with her perfect nails and her perfect life built on money she never earned. I'm going to pick up my grandson, I said, because there's one person in this family who still says, I love you, Grandma, without checking his inheritance first. Jessica's face crumpled. And he's about to learn what loyalty actually costs. I pushed open the door and walked out of First National Bank. Into the cold October air. Into my new life. Behind me, I heard Jessica screaming. But I didn't look back. I pulled into the parking lot of Riverside High School at 1:47 p.m. School didn't end until 3:15, but I texted Tyler anyway. Come outside, it's Grandma, emergency. Not a lie. This was an emergency. Just not the kind he'd expect. 5 minutes later, he pushed through the front doors, backpack bouncing against his shoulders, his face tight with worry. 16 years old and already taller than his grandfather ever was. He had Richard's height, but my eyes dark, careful, the kind that actually see things. He spotted my car and jogged over, pulling open the passenger door. Grandma? Are you okay? Is someone hurt? Get in. He slid into the seat, still breathing hard. What happened? Your text said emergency. Do you trust me, Tyler? He blinked. What? Do you trust me? I started the car. Simple question. Of course I do. Grandma, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. I pulled out of the parking lot. Your mother is about to call you. Maybe in 5 minutes. Maybe in 10. When she does, I need you to not answer. His phone buzzed in his pocket. We both looked at it. That her? I asked. He checked the screen, nodded. Let it ring. Grandma! Tyler, please. Just trust me for 1 hour. Can you do that? He watched me for a long moment. Then he put the phone back in his pocket, still buzzing. 1 hour, he said quietly. I drove. Not toward my house, not toward his. Toward the Starbucks on Market Street where nobody from our family ever went, where we could sit in a corner booth and I could tell him everything before Jessica's version of the story poisoned the well. I ordered him a hot chocolate, got myself black coffee I wouldn't drink. We sat by the window, November light filtering through glass that needed cleaning. Tell me something, I said. What do you know about your grandfather's business? Tyler shrugged. He owned a real estate company, Chen Properties, made a lot of money. Mom says he was a genius. What else? He died when I was 11, heart attack, left everything to Mom and Uncle David. He stirred his hot chocolate with a wooden stick. Left you some money too, right? $50,000 for faithful service as his secretary. Tyler looked up. Something in my voice made him go still. That sounds wrong, he said slowly. It was. I told him everything. Every word I'd said in that bank conference room, I said again, slower this time, making sure he understood. The 40 years of work, the deals I'd negotiated while Richard took credit, the properties I'd found while he played golf, the payroll I'd managed, where every month I'd quietly paid myself what I was actually worth, not the secretary's salary Richard reported, but the partner's share I'd earned. Tyler's hot chocolate went cold while I talked. When I finished, he just sat there, staring at me. So Grandpa. He couldn't finish the sentence. Stole from me, yes. Not intentionally, he genuinely believed he'd built everything alone. But ignorance isn't innocence, Tyler. He took credit for my work, paid me pennies, and never once asked himself how his genius's ideas always seemed to work perfectly. Patient demonstrates excellent cognitive function, sharp memory, and clear reasoning abilities. No evidence of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any form of cognitive impairment. Dr. Patricia Chen, October 2023. After extensive testing including MRI, cognitive assessments, and memory evaluations, patient is cognitively intact with no signs of dementia. Any previous diagnosis of cognitive decline appears to be erroneous or potentially fraudulent. The defense lawyer's face had gone pale. Your Honor, we weren't provided with these reports during discovery. Because I didn't tell anyone about them, I said. Not even my own lawyer at first. I wanted to see how far Michael and Jessica would go with the dementia lie. The prosecutor nodded. Mrs. Hartwell, why did you pretend to be confused during the appointment with Dr. Patterson? Because by that point, I knew something was wrong. Money was disappearing. Papers were appearing that I didn't remember signing. And Jessica was pushing hard for me to see this specific doctor. I looked at Michael. I'm 72 years old, but I'm not stupid. I knew they needed me declared incompetent for their plan to work. So you played along? I played along. I pulled out my phone, the one Michael thought I barely knew how to use. The prosecutor had already submitted it as evidence, but now she held it up for the jury to see. Mrs. Hartwell also recorded several conversations, she said. I did. My voice was steady now, powered by righteous anger. After I found the forged power of attorney and the fake dementia diagnosis, I started recording everything. I kept my phone in my cardigan pocket during dinner, during conversations in the living room, during the times when Michael and Jessica thought I was napping upstairs. The prosecutor pressed play on an audio file. Jessica's voice filled the courtroom, crystal clear. Can't believe how easy this is. She literally signs anything you put in front of her. Michael's laugh. That sound I'd heard a million times growing up when he'd won a Little League game, when he'd gotten his driver's license, when I'd surprised him with a birthday cake. Now it sounded like poison. I told you. The dementia angle was genius. Even if she figures it out later, who's going to believe a senile old woman? Dr. Patterson came through perfectly. That possible cognitive decline is all we need for the incompetency hearing. Judge won't even question it. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we keep draining her accounts. By the time anyone notices, we'll have enough to disappear if we need to. Costa Rica doesn't have an extradition treaty for financial crimes. The recording stopped. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. One of the jurors, a man in his 50s wearing a blue shirt, was staring at Michael with undisguised disgust. That was recorded August 23rd, I said quietly. I was sitting in the living room with my phone in my pocket, pretending to doze off while watching Wheel of Fortune. They were in the kitchen making dinner, drinking wine, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate a senile old woman. I pulled out another recording. This one is from September 10th. The prosecutor pressed play. Michael's voice. Mom asked me today why her insurance got canceled. I told her the company made a mistake, that I'd fix it. Jessica, did she believe you? Of course she did. She always believes me. That's what mothers do. A long pause, then Jessica's voice, cold and calculating. We need to move faster on the nursing home. The longer she's coherent enough to ask questions, the more dangerous this gets. Patterson said he could adjust the diagnosis if we need him to. Make it sound worse, but it'll cost us. Pay him. Whatever it takes. Once she's declared incompetent and locked in that facility, we're home free. I watched Michael as his own voice condemned him. He was crying now, not the tears of remorse, but the tears of someone watching their entire life collapse. There are 17 recordings in total, the prosecutor said. Would you like to hear more? No, the judge said. His voice was hard as stone. I think we've heard enough. But I wasn't done. I pulled out one more document. Your Honor, I also have this. It was a notepad different from the one with Jessica practicing my signature. This one was Michael's handwriting, and I'd found it in his nightstand drawer when I'd finally worked up the courage to search their room. The prosecutor held it up for the jury. It was a list, a cold, calculated list. Mom's assets. House. $380,000 based on county assessment. Savings. $127,000. Life insurance. Dad's policy. $75,000. Veterans benefits. $1,847 divided by month. Social Security. $1,432 divided by month. Total liquid assets. To $580 $2,000. Monthly income, $3,279. Below that, in Michael's handwriting, timeline, month 1 to 3, gain access to accounts. Month 4 to 6, transfer assets, open credit lines. Month 6 to 9, secure dementia diagnosis. Month 9 to 12, incompetency hearing, nursing home placement. Month 12 plus, liquidate remaining assets, sell house. I looked at that list at my life reduced to dollar signs and a timeline, and something inside me that had been cracked finally broke completely. My son, I said, my voice shaking, made a spreadsheet of how to rob me blind. He calculated how long it would take to steal everything my husband and I spent 43 years building. He planned out exactly when to have me declared incompetent and locked away. I looked directly at Michael. You treated me like a business transaction. Michael was sobbing now, his face in his hands. Jessica had gone completely still, like a rabbit sensing a predator. The defense lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Hartwell, isn't it possible you misinterpreted? I'm not finished, I said sharply. The judge nodded. Continue, Mrs. Hartwell. There's one more recording, I said. From October 15th, 3 days before I hired the investigator. This was the one I'd almost deleted a dozen times. The one that still made me want to curl up and never stop crying. The prosecutor played it, my voice shaky and small. Michael, honey, I need to talk to you about the bank statements. I'm confused about some withdrawals. Michael, irritated. Mom, we've been over this. You're not managing money well right now. That's why I'm helping you. But $17,000 last month? Mom. His voice turned cold. You're not well. Dr. Patterson said you're having memory issues. You need to trust me to handle this. Jessica's face went white. I didn't, that's not. I called the bank. Tiffany told me everything. My heart swelled. My brilliant, loyal, perfect grandson had called the bank, had verified my story before believing his mother's lies. Jessica turned to me. Her eyes were black with hate. You turned my son against me, she said. Her voice was deadly quiet. You poisoned him. I told him the truth. There's a difference. The house is mine. Dad left it to me. I'm taking it back. You can't. Watch me. She lunged. Actually lunged, hands reaching for my throat, her face twisted into something I didn't recognize. Tyler caught her, held her back. She fought him, screaming, clawing, completely unraveled. Let me go, Tyler, let me go, she's destroying everything. You destroyed it yourself, Mom, Tyler said, and his voice was so sad, so broken, that even Jessica stopped struggling. She looked at her son, really looked. Baby, she whispered, please, don't do this, don't choose her over me. Tyler let her go, stepped back. He looked at his mother, then at me, then at the check in his hand. I'm not choosing, Mom, he said quietly. I'm choosing what's right. Then he walked past her, into the house, and came out 5 minutes later with a backpack full of clothes. He got in my car without looking back. I drove away, leaving Jessica standing in the driveway of the house she thought was hers, screaming at the sky. In the rearview mirror, I watched her collapse. And I felt nothing. Nothing at all. Tyler didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. He just sat in the passenger seat, backpack on his lap like a shield, staring out the window at the houses sliding past. Normal houses with normal families having normal problems, not the kind that explode in driveways with $500,000 checks and 40 years of stolen labor. You okay? I finally asked. No. His voice was rough. But I will be. Smart kid. We pulled into my driveway at 4:32 p.m. The house looked smaller than I remembered, sadder, with its chipped paint and overgrown bushes. The furnace guy's invoice was still taped to the front door, $200 in red letters, urgent stamped across the top. Tyler saw it, didn't say anything, just grabbed his backpack and followed me inside. The house was cold. I'd kept the thermostat at 58 to save money, wearing sweaters instead of paying for heat. Old lady poverty, The invisible kind where you're never quite warm and never quite full, but you smile and say you're fine because admitting otherwise feels like failure. "I'll make tea," I said. Tyler dropped his backpack by the couch, looked around like he was seeing the place for the first time, and maybe he was really seeing it, I mean. The worn carpet, the furniture from 1987, the walls that needed paint, the whole house that screamed a woman lives here alone and nobody cares. "Grandma," he said quietly, "how long have you been living like this?" "Like what?" "Like," he gestured helplessly, "like you don't have $4 million in the bank." I filled the kettle, put it on the stove. 5 years. Since your grandfather died and left me $50,000 for faithful service. But you had the other money, the account. I never touched it. I pulled out 2 mugs. That money was my insurance, Tyler. My proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't worthless, wasn't just some secretary who got lucky marrying the boss. As long as it sat there, growing, untouched, it was evidence. The moment I spent it, it became real, and real things can be taken away. That doesn't make sense. It does, when you've been invisible for 60 years. The kettle screamed. I poured water over tea bags, cheap store brand, 2 for $1. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd done payroll for Chen Properties every Sunday night while Richard watched football in the other room. The same table where I'd forged my own financial freedom, one spreadsheet at a time. Tyler wrapped his hands around his mug. "Mom's going to call me again." "I know. She's going to cry. Beg. Maybe threaten. Probably all 3. What do I say?" I looked at my grandson, 16 years old and already facing the kind of moral choice that breaks grown men. "You say whatever you need to say to sleep at night," I told him. "I'm not asking you to choose sides, Tyler. I'm asking you to see clearly. Your mother laughed at me when I needed help. That happened. That's real. What you do with that information is up to you. She's not a bad person," he said quietly. She's used to things being easy, used to money appearing when she needs it, used to thinking Grandpa was this genius, and you were just the help. Yeah. She learned that from Richard, and Richard learned it from a world that teaches men they're brilliant and women who support them are just doing their job. I sipped my tea. It was too hot, burned my tongue. "I don't hate your mother, Tyler. I pity her. She inherited her father's arrogance without his charm. That's a hard way to live." His phone buzzed. He flipped it face down without looking. "What about Sarah?" he asked. "She's only 13. She didn't do anything wrong." "No, she didn't." "So why punish her? Why take the house when you know it'll hurt her too?" "Because Sarah needs to learn the same lesson you're learning right now." I set down my mug. That nothing in this life is guaranteed. That comfort built on someone else's suffering is just cruelty with better furniture. That if you want to keep something, you have to earn it. "She's 13, Grandma. She can't earn a house." "No, but her mother can." I pulled out my phone, opened my email, showed him the message I'd drafted 2 hours ago, sitting in the Starbucks parking lot while he processed everything I'd told him. To Jessica Chen from Mom. Subject. Terms. Jessica, the house on Oakwood Drive is in a trust with my name on the deed. I can revoke your residency at any time, and as of this morning, I've instructed my attorney to begin eviction proceedings. However, I'm not a monster. If you want to keep the house, here are my terms. 1. You will pay me fair market rent, starting December 1st, $2,800 divided by month, non-negotiable. 2. You will apologize, publicly, to me. At the next family dinner, in front of everyone, you will tell the truth about who built Chen Properties. 3. You will get therapy, real therapy, not Instagram wellness coaching. You will work on understanding why you thought it was acceptable to humiliate your mother for asking for help. Meet these terms, and you can stay. Refuse, and you have 60 days to vacate. Your choice. Mom. Tyler read it 3 times. You're giving her a chance, he said. I'm giving her a choice. There's a difference. Will she take it? I don't know. I closed the email. Didn't send it yet. But she's my daughter. I have to try. His phone buzzed again, and again, and again. He finally flipped it over. 31 missed calls, 47 texts. His thumb hovered over the screen. "Go ahead," I said. "Read them." He opened the texts. I watched his face change as he scrolled. Anger, sadness, disgust. "She's saying you manipulated me," he said flatly. "That you're mentally unstable. That the money isn't real. That you forged documents. That I should come home immediately before you do something dangerous." "Am I dangerous?" "No." He kept scrolling. "She's saying she's calling Uncle David. And Aunt Patricia, wait. Aunt Patricia is your lawyer? I told you. I have 2 daughters. One laughed at me. One helped me prepare for this day for 20 years. Mom doesn't even talk to Aunt Patricia. I know. Patricia chose law school over marriage, career over children. Your mother called her selfish. They haven't spoken in 8 years. Tyler put his phone down. This family is so messed up. Most families are. We just hide it better. He laughed. Sad and sharp. Not anymore. The doorbell rang. We both froze. Tyler started to stand. I touched his arm. Stay here. Grandma. Stay here. I walked to the front door, looked through the peephole. Jessica. Of course it was Jessica. She was still in her work clothes, mascara streaked down her face, hair falling out of its professional twist. She looked destroyed. She looked like I'd felt for 40 years. I opened the door. Mom, she choked out. Please, can we talk? We have nothing to talk about. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was awful. I was cruel. You're right about everything. I don't want your apology, Jessica. Not right now. Not when it's motivated by panic. Then what do you want? She was crying openly now. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. Anything. Just please don't take the house. Please don't take my son. I didn't take Tyler. He chose to leave. Because you poisoned him against me. I told him the truth. Your version of the truth? The only version that matters. I kept my voice level. Calm. Jessica, I gave you everything. I gave your father everything. I built your entire life and asked for nothing except basic respect. And when I finally needed something $200, you laughed at me. I know I did. I was terrible. But Mom, people make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to treat me like I was worthless. You chose your coworkers' opinions over your mother's dignity. I started to close the door. Now I'm choosing myself. Wait, she shoved her hand in the doorway. What about the terms? Tyler showed me you sent him the email. I haven't sent it yet. But you wrote it, so there's a chance. If I agree to everything, the rent, the apology, the therapy, you'll let us stay? I looked at her. Really looked. She was desperate, broken, finally seeing me. But she was only seeing me because she had to, because I'd forced her to. If you meet the terms, I said slowly, you can stay. But Jessica understands something. The rent isn't negotiable. About forged signatures, about the warning signs that someone, even someone you love, might be taking advantage of you. I don't tell them it was my son. I don't tell them about the courtroom or the recordings or the look on Michael's face when the verdict came in. But they know. I can see it in their eyes. They know I'm not speaking from research or statistics. I'm speaking from experience. Last week, a woman named Dorothy approached me after class. She was crying. My daughter, she whispered. I think she's been stealing from me. I didn't want to believe it, but everything you said, all the signs. I held her hand. It's not too late. You can protect yourself. But she's my daughter. How can I? I know. And I did. God, I knew. But you have to. Because if you don't, one day you'll wake up with nothing, and she'll walk away. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have saved yourself. Dorothy hired a lawyer the next week, found out her daughter had stolen $43,000, filed charges. She thanked me, said I'd saved her life. I went home and cried for 3 hours. Robert's grave is at the Veterans Cemetery, 20 minutes from the house. I visit every Sunday after church, bring fresh flowers, tell him about my week. Last Sunday, I told him about Michael's letter. I don't know what to do. I whispered to the headstone. He's our son, our baby. But Rob, he tried to destroy me. He called me a burden. He was going to lock me away and wait for me to die. The wind rustled through the oak trees. A cardinal landed on a nearby headstone, bright red against the gray stone. But he's still our son. That's the truth I can't escape. Michael is still my son. Still the boy I carried for 9 months. Still the baby I nursed at 3 a.m. Still the child I would have died for without hesitation. He's also the man who stole my life savings, forged my signature, and planned to warehouse me in a Medicaid facility. Both things are true, and I don't know how to hold both truths at once without breaking. I'm 73 now. I've lived in this house for 40 years. I've buried a husband, raised 2 children, survived cancer and heartbreak and betrayal. I've learned that justice and peace aren't the same thing, that you can win in court and still lose in your heart, that doing the right thing sometimes costs you everything. People ask me if I regret testifying, if I regret sending my son to prison. The answer is complicated. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret refusing to be a victim. I don't regret standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to do this to me." But I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my son became someone capable of doing what he did. I regret the grandson I'll never know, and the family dinners that will never happen, and the reconciliation that might never come. Mostly, I regret that love wasn't enough. I loved Michael with every cell in my body. I would have given him anything he asked for. If he'd needed money, I would have given it freely. If he'd needed help, I would have helped him. If he'd just been honest, we could have figured it out together. But he didn't ask. He took. And that made all the difference. Last week, I got another letter from Michael. I haven't opened it yet. It's sitting on my kitchen table, next to my coffee mug and the bills I need to pay and the crossword puzzle I'm halfway through. I look at it every morning. Maybe tomorrow I'll open it. Maybe next week. Maybe never. For now, it's enough to know that I survived, that I saved myself, that when my son tried to erase me, I fought back. I think about the other elderly parents out there, the ones who are lonely, vulnerable, who love their children so much they can't see the danger until it's too late. The ones who are being manipulated, stolen from, betrayed by the people they raised. If my story reaches even one of them, if it gives even one person the courage to say no, to fight back, to choose themselves over blind loyalty, then maybe this heartbreak meant something. Maybe it saved someone else from signing their life away at a kitchen table while their son smiled and poured poisoned tea. Robert's voice echoes in my memory sometimes, from one of our last conversations before he died. "Ellie, promise me something. Promise me you'll be strong, that you won't let anyone push you around, not even people who are supposed to love you. I promise. You're stronger than you think. Don't forget that." I kept that promise, Robert. Even when it cost me our son, even when it broke my heart, I kept it. And sitting here in our house, in the home we built together, I can almost hear him say, "I'm proud of you." That has to be enough. Because some battles you win in court, and some battles you fight alone in the middle of the night, trying to hold together the pieces of a heart that will never quite be whole again. I won both battles. The price was everything. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still Eleanor Hartwell, 73 years old, owner of her own home, keeper of her own life. And that, I suppose, is its own kind of victory.